Hi everyone, thank you so much for the support today. We live to see another day, another round, so please come and support me tomorrow in both.
I mean, dream since she was a kid to see her on carry the...
Buhay! Maraming salamat sa support at magkita tayo sa next round. Thank you.
Alex Eala's dad proclaims conflict. The Abu Dhabi legal case that's ripping tennis apart. Halt everything you're doing right now because what I'm about to reveal to you isn't just another tennis dispute. This is a complete-scale proclamation of conflict that's transmitting shock waves through the entire professional tennis realm. We've witnessed poor decisions before. We've observed epic breakdowns, racket demolitions, and heated disputes with chair umpires. But folks, we have never ever witnessed anything quite like this. Just hours ago, a bombshell detonated in the tennis community that has transformed the prestigious Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open. From a celebrated tournament into ground zero of a scandal that threatens to reveal the darkest secrets of professional tennis officiating. Mike Eala, the dad of the Philippines' brightest tennis star Alex Eala, has taken the unprecedented step of filing an actual legal case against the tournament organizers. Not a strongly worded letter, not an angry social media post, not a complaint filed through proper channels. A legitimate, no-holds-barred legal action that could alter the landscape of professional tennis forever. He's calling the officiating disgraceful. He's calling what occurred to his daughter a theft. Most explosively, he's asserting that officials in Abu Dhabi didn't just make honest errors. They intentionally sabotaged his daughter's meteoric rise to undermine the integrity of the entire sport. This is Champions Tennis, and today we're diving deep into the most explosive tennis scandal of the year. We've got the exclusive details, the angry quotes that are setting social media ablaze, and we're going to break down every single moment that led to this nuclear option. Was Alex Eala specifically targeted? Is there a hidden bias against rising stars from Southeast Asia? What does this mean for her future in the biggest tournaments? And most importantly, could this legal case blow the lid off systematic problems in tennis officiating that have been festering for years? The Sayers fan army is mobilizing. The ELA family is fighting back with everything they've got, and the tennis establishment is scrambling in panic mode. Let's break down this absolutely insane story from the very beginning because trust me, every single detail matters. Let's start with the hard facts in the timeline because in journalism and in tennis, timing is absolutely everything. According to multiple sources close to the Eala camp and reports that started circulating on social media less than 2 hours ago, Mike Eala has filed formal legal action against the organizers of the Abu Dhabi Open. The core allegation at the heart of this legal case is absolutely damning. Unfair officiating decisions that deliberately put Alex at a severe competitive disadvantage during a crucial match in her career trajectory. Now, let's be crystal clear about something. Every professional tennis player on earth has dealt with questionable line calls. Every single one has experienced the frustration of a close call going against them at a critical moment. That's part of the game, right? You shake your head. You mutter under your breath. Maybe you give the umpire a look and then you move on to the next point. That's standard operating procedure in professional tennis. But what we're talking about here goes far, far beyond a single disputed line call. According to Mike Eala's statement, what occurred in Abu Dhabi was nothing less than a systematic point-to-point dismantling of his daughter's mental state and competitive advantage during what should have been one of the defining matches of her breakout season. Here's the quote that's currently setting the tennis internet absolutely on fire. Listen carefully to the raw emotion and barely controlled fury in these words. This is truly disgraceful. They are undermining the integrity of tennis. If they do not change their decision, my daughter will suffer severe consequences. How can they treat a 21-year-old young woman who is already facing criticism from across the Philippines in this way? Let those words sink in for a moment. Severe consequences. He's not worried about a trophy that will sit on a shelf. He's not concerned about a single tournament's prize money. He's talking about his daughter's entire career trajectory, her ranking points that determine which tournaments she can enter directly, her seeding at Grand Slams, and her psychological well-being. And perhaps most heartbreaking of all, he's openly acknowledging the crushing pressure that Alex is under as the undisputed face of Philippine tennis, carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire nation on her young shoulders. Let's talk about context for a moment because understanding where Alex is right now in her career is absolutely crucial to understanding why this legal case represents such a dramatic, desperate measure. We're talking about February 2026. Alex Eala is 20 years old, soon to turn 21. She's no longer the promising junior champion with potential. She's no longer the teenage prodigy that people whisper might make it someday. She's right now at this very moment a legitimate top-tier WTA contender who has fought, clawed, and battled her way into the top 40 of the world rankings. Think about that for a second. The top 40 in the world. Out of thousands of professional players, she's in the elite group. She's getting direct entry into WTA 1000 events. She's facing the biggest names in tennis, not as a wide-eyed newcomer, but as a legitimate threat. But here's the thing that most casual fans don't fully understand. With that rise comes pressure that would crush most people. In the Philippines, Alex isn't just another athlete competing in an individual sport. She's a national icon. She's on billboards, she's in commercials. Every single match she plays is watched by millions. Every victory is celebrated like a national holiday. And every loss is dissected, analyzed, criticized, and debated by millions of passionate fans and yes, by equally passionate critics on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and every other social media platform you can imagine. Her dad specifically mentioned this crushing reality in his statement, facing criticism from across the Philippines. Imagine being 20 years old and knowing that every time you step on a tennis court, an entire nation is watching, judging, hopping, and yes, sometimes unfairly criticizing. So Alex enters the Abu Dhabi Open, a prestigious WTA 500 event that represents a crucial opportunity in her season. She desperately needs these ranking points to solidify her position for Grand Slam seeding. She needs the prize money to continue funding her world-class team, her travel, her training. She fights through the early rounds with the determination and grit that's become her trademark. She battles her way to the quarterfinals. The crowd is absolutely electric. Thousands of Filipino expatriates living in the UAE have packed the stands, waving flags, chanting her name, creating an atmosphere that feels like a home match despite being thousands of miles from Manila. The energy is palpable. Her doubles partnership with Janice Jin, as the Sears, has been generating buzz throughout the tournament. Everything, absolutely everything, is lining up for a potential fairy tale run that could launch her into the top 30. And then, according to multiple eyewitness accounts and the allegations in the legal case, the officiating starts to turn. Now, if you followed professional tennis for any length of time, you've probably noticed a disturbing pattern. Players from smaller tennis nations, from countries without decades of Grand Slam champions and established tennis infrastructure, often seem to get the short end of the stick when it comes to close calls. Those 50-50 line calls that could go either way somehow always seem to favor the higher-ranked seed from a traditional tennis powerhouse. Time violations get handed out to the young upstart, while the veteran player gets infinite patience and understanding. Technical malfunctions with electronic line calling systems mysteriously only seem to occur on break points against the player from the less established tennis nation. Usually these players have no choice but to swallow their frustration. They might post a cryptic, slightly sad Instagram story with a thoughtful emoji. They might give a carefully worded answer in the post-match press conference about tough calls, and that's tennis. And then they pack their bags, get on a plane, and move on to the next tournament, hoping for better luck. But not this time. This time the Eala family has decided that enough is enough. They've drawn a line in the sand. They've said in the clearest possible terms that they will not accept this treatment anymore, not just for Alex, but for every rising star from a non-traditional tennis nation who has been marginalized, dismissed, or unfairly treated by the tennis establishment. So what exactly occurred on that court in Abu Dhabi? While the full legal case is sealed and contains specific legal details that haven't been made public yet, insiders who were present and fans who watched the match are painting an absolutely disturbing picture of what went down. It was a high-stakes moment in the match. The tension in the stadium was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Alex was serving, trying to hold to stay in the set or possibly to break her opponent's momentum. She hits what appears to be a crucial shot. Fans in the stadium who had a clear view of the line insist the ball was clearly in. Multiple spectators reported seeing chalk fly up from the line, which in tennis is usually definitive proof that a ball caught the line and should be called good, but the line judge called it out. Alex's face showed immediate confusion and disbelief. She turned to the chair umpire, clearly wanting to challenge the call. But here's where things get truly bizarre. According to reports, either the electronic review system was mysteriously unavailable at that crucial moment, or the chair umpire immediately overruled any possibility of a challenge without proper explanation. The look of confusion and frustration on Alex's face was visible to everyone in the stadium. She pleaded with the chair umpire, her body language clearly saying, "How is this possible?" She pointed to where the ball landed, trying to show the mark, but the umpire was unmoved, unchanging, almost robotically refusing to even consider the possibility of an error. And according to the legal case and eyewitness accounts, it didn't stop there. Reports suggest there were wildly inconsistent applications of the time violation rules. While Alex's opponent was apparently allowed to take extended breaks, toweling off leisurely, walking slowly back to the baseline, taking time to adjust strings and bounce the ball repeatedly before serving, Alex was rushed, pressured, and seemingly penalized for taking even normal amounts of time. Every single time she started to build momentum, every time she began to find her rhythm and her confidence started to grow, an official would intervene with a time warning or a questionable call that broke her concentration. If you know anything about tennis, you know that momentum is absolutely everything. The sport is as much mental as it is physical. You break a player's rhythm, you shatter their confidence, and you effectively take away their ability to play their natural game. It's psychological warfare. And according to the allegations, that's exactly what occurred to Alex Eala in Abu Dhabi. The legal case reportedly claims that these weren't random mistakes or unfortunate coincidences. The The legal language suggests these were negligent and potentially discriminatory actions that directly and materially altered the outcome of the match. Now imagine being Mike Eala, sitting in the player's box watching this unfold in real time. You've sacrificed absolutely everything for your daughter's career. You see your daughter's head drop. You see the frustration in her eyes turning to resignation. You see her fighting spirit being crushed point by point. You see the severe consequences that your statement warned about unfolding right there on the court. Most parents in that situation would scream. They'd storm out of their seat. They'd get ejected from the stadium. Mike Eala did something far more powerful and far more dangerous to the tennis establishment. He called his lawyer. And this brings us to the absolutely massive elephant in the room issue that nobody in professional tennis wants to talk about honestly: integrity. Mike Eala used that specific word in his statement, and it wasn't chosen lightly. They are undermining the integrity of tennis. This is an absolutely massive career-defining accusation. He's effectively stating in language that will now be examined in a court of law that the tournament in Abu Dhabi was not a fair, legitimate sporting competition. He's saying the outcome was influenced by factors that had nothing to do with athletic performance. And here's the uncomfortable truth that's going to make a lot of people in tennis administration very, very nervous. He might have a very strong point. We've seen controversies piling up in professional tennis over the past several years. We've seen players scheduled for matches that don't end until 3 or 4 in the morning, creating what many have called inhumane conditions. We've seen complaints about tournament balls being too heavy, leading to an epidemic of wrist and arm injuries among players. We've seen electronic line calling systems mysteriously fail at crucial moments, always seeming to benefit certain players over others. We've seen a pattern, and once you start seeing the pattern, you can't unsee it. But when this pattern targets a young player like Alex, someone who represents not just her own dreams, but the hopes of an entire nation, someone who represents the future of tennis in Asia, and the potential for the sport to truly become global rather than dominated by a handful of European and North American countries, it hits different. It stings in a way that goes beyond one player in one match, because here's what the tennis establishment might not fully understand. Tennis desperately needs Alex. They need the passionate, engaged, social media-savvy Filipino fan base that represents arguably the most dedicated and active tennis fans in the entire world. Look at the engagement numbers when Alex plays. When she's on court, Filipino tennis Twitter absolutely explodes. The viewership numbers spike. The social media metrics go through the roof. She's not just good for Philippine tennis, she's good for the entire sport. So the question that everyone is asking, the question that's being debated in group chats and comment sections all over the world right now is, why would they treat her this way? Some observers, the conspiracy theorists if you want to call them that, are suggesting that the tennis establishment has an interest in protecting the old guard. They don't want the rankings to shift too dramatically or too quickly. They want familiar names, faces that European and American television audiences recognize in the finals for television ratings and sponsor commitments. Is Alex Eala in a twisted way a victim of her own success? Is she rising too fast, threatening too many established players, disrupting the comfortable status quo that benefits tournament organizers and television networks? Or is the explanation simpler and somehow even more disturbing? Is it just pure incompetence? Is the standard of officiating in professional tennis in 2026 simply so poor, so inconsistent, so lacking in accountability that these kinds of match-altering errors happen regularly, and nobody does anything about it because players are too afraid to speak up? Whatever the true explanation turns out to be, one thing is absolutely clear. The Eala family is not buying the standard "oops, sorry, these things happen" excuse anymore. They want accountability. They want the decision reviewed and potentially reversed. And even if that doesn't happen, they want the entire world to acknowledge the injustice, to see what occurred, and to demand better. The reaction to this legal case has been instantaneous, overwhelming, and absolutely explosive on every social media platform. Over on X, which you might still know as Twitter, the hashtag Justice for Alex started trending within minutes and is currently trending #1 in the Philippines and #3 in the United Arab Emirates. Fans are flooding the Abu Dhabi Open's official Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts with thousands of comments demanding answers, accountability, and action. One fan wrote, "Finally, someone with the courage to stand up to these biases. Go get them, Mike. The whole Philippines is behind you." Another posted, "I watched that match live. It was clear, obvious theft. Alex was winning that set until the umpire interfered and destroyed her momentum. This legal case is completely justified, but it's not just passionate fans who are paying attention. We're hearing whispers, rumors, and quiet conversations that other players on the tour are watching this situation extremely closely, because think about the implications if Mike Eala actually wins this legal case. If he gets a court of law to officially acknowledge that poor, biased, or negligent officiating caused measurable financial damages and career harm to his daughter, it opens the floodgates. Every player who has ever been robbed by a terrible call, every player who has felt targeted or discriminated against, every player who has bitten their tongue and moved on because they felt powerless, could potentially file similar legal cases. It could fundamentally change the power dynamic in professional tennis. It could force tournaments to implement far stricter accountability measures for officials. It could bankrupt smaller tournaments that can't afford massive legal settlements. It could force the tour to eliminate every human line judge immediately and move to 100% automated calling systems. This is precisely why tournament organizers are absolutely terrified right now. According to sources with knowledge of the situation, there are emergency meetings happening right now behind closed doors. Lawyers are being consulted. Public relations firms are being brought in for crisis management. Tournament directors are asking the difficult questions. Do we try to settle this quietly before it becomes an even bigger media circus? Do we issue a public apology to Alex and her family, essentially admitting fault? Do we offer her some kind of compensation or special consideration at future tournaments? Or do we fight this legal case aggressively, deny everything, and risk dragging Alex Eala through a lengthy, messy public trial that could damage her reputation and her career, even if she ultimately wins? And let's talk about Alex herself for a moment, because she's at the center of this storm. She's currently in Dubai preparing for a WTA 1000 event that she just earned direct entry into based on her current ranking, a huge achievement that should be celebrated. She should be focused entirely on her training, on her preparation, on visualizing her matches and fine-tuning her game. Instead, she's the center of an international legal controversy and media firestorm. We know Alex is mentally tough. She's a graduate of the Raf El Nadal Academy, where mental toughness is drilled into every student just as much as forehands and backhands. She has that fight until the last point spirit that's made her so beloved by fans. But this is a distraction of absolutely epic proportions. This is unlike anything she's dealt with before. The legal case specifically mentions that she's facing criticism back home. Anyone who follows Philippine sports media knows how intense and sometimes brutally unforgiving the commentary can be. If she loses her next match in Dubai, critics will say she's distracted by the legal case drama. If she complains about any officiating in Dubai, people will say she's become difficult, that she's making excuses, that she's getting a reputation as a troublemaker. It's a lose-lose situation for her personally, unless her dad can actually win this battle on her behalf and establish a precedent that protects her and other players in the future. So what happens next? What are the actual concrete severe consequences that Mike Eala warned about in his statement? First and most immediately, there's the ranking impact. If the match in question was recorded as a loss when it should have, under fair officiating, been a win, Alex loses out on critically important ranking points. In the incredibly tight race for top 30 positioning, where players are separated by just a handful of points, every single point matters enormously. Being seeded at Roland Garros or Wimbledon is the difference between potentially facing a top 10 player in the first round or having a much more manageable draw that allows you to build confidence and momentum into the second week of a Grand Slam. Those seeding points could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in prize money and, more importantly, in career trajectory. Second, there's the reputational impact, and this cuts both ways. By filing a legal case against the tour, the Eala family is marking themselves as rebels, as troublemakers, as people who won't play by the unspoken rules of the tennis establishment. Professional tennis, despite its global reach and massive prize money, is still in many ways a very polite country club sport at its core. The establishment doesn't like boat rockers. They don't like players who make noise, who demand accountability, who threaten the comfortable system. Will chair umpires be even stricter with Alex now, consciously or unconsciously punishing her for her dad's legal case? Will tournament directors become hesitant to offer wild cards or special considerations even though she barely needs them anymore given her ranking? Will sponsors become nervous about association with controversy? Or, and this is the possibility that has the establishment most worried, will this transform Alex into a hero? Will this be the defining moment when she transitions from being seen as the sweet, gracious, humble girl next door into the Iron Lady of Asian tennis? The player who refused to be pushed around, who stood up for herself and for every player who has ever been treated unfairly. There's real fire in this legal case. There's anger, determination, and a refusal to accept the status quo. It suggests that the Eala camp is no longer content just to participate and be grateful for the opportunity. They're demanding to be treated with the respect that Alex's talent and accomplishments have earned. They're demanding fairness, transparency, and accountability. We're potentially looking at a watershed moment in professional tennis. If the Abu Dhabi Open settles this legal case quietly, it's an implicit admission of guilt. It's an acknowledgement that yes, something went very wrong. If they fight it and it goes to trial, we're looking at months of discovery, depositions, expert witnesses, and media coverage that could expose uncomfortable truths about how tennis officiating actually works behind the scenes. And right in the middle of all this legal drama, all this controversy and media attention, Alex Eala has to pick up her racket, walk onto the court in Dubai in just a few days, and compete at the highest level against the best players in the world. Talk about pressure. Talk about mental toughness. Talk about being tested in ways that have nothing to do with tennis skills. Let's also consider the broader implications for tennis in Asia, and particularly in Southeast Asia. The Philippines has produced individual sports champions before, but tennis has historically been dominated by a small handful of countries. Alex Eala represents something bigger than herself. She represents possibility. She represents the idea that a young player from Manila can compete with and beat players from traditional tennis powerhouses. Every time she wins, every time she breaks a new ranking milestone, she's inspiring thousands of young Filipino kids to pick up a racket. She's proving that geography and tennis infrastructure don't have to be destiny. This legal case, whether it succeeds legally or not, sends a powerful message. We will not be treated as second-class citizens in our own sport. We belong here, we've earned our place, and we demand fairness. The timing of this legal case is also significant. We're in the Middle East swing of the WTA Tour, a region that has invested billions of dollars in sports infrastructure and prestige events. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar are hosting major tennis tournaments with massive prize money, trying to establish themselves as major players in the global tennis landscape. A legal case alleging unfair treatment at one of these prestigious tournaments is a huge embarrassment. It threatens the reputation of not just one tournament, but potentially the entire region's sporting credibility. This gives the ELA family leverage. This gives them a platform. The organizers can't simply dismiss this as one disgruntled player complaining about a poor call. This is a legal challenge that, if it gains traction, could damage relationships worth hundreds of millions of dollars. We should also talk about the role of social media in amplifying the story. 20 years ago, if a player felt they were treated unfairly, they could maybe give a quote to a tennis journalist that might get picked up by a sports website. Today, within hours of Mike Eala's statement, the story had been shared tens of thousands of times. Filipino fan accounts, tennis analysis accounts, sports news aggregators, and even mainstream media outlets picked up the story. The hashtags are trending. The debate is raging, and crucially, this puts pressure on the WTA, the tournament, and tennis officials in a way that simply wasn't possible before. They can't make this go away quietly. They can't just issue a bland statement and wait for everyone to forget. The internet doesn't forget. The fans don't forget. And Alex supporters, the passionate C fan base, are making absolutely sure this story stays in the spotlight until something changes. There's also something deeply admirable about the way Mike Eala has framed this fight. He's not just advocating for his daughter. He's explicitly talking about the integrity of tennis as a sport. He's making this about something bigger than one match, one tournament, one player. He's making it about fairness, about standards, about the soul of the sport. That framing is powerful because it's hard to argue against. Everyone who loves tennis should want the sport to have integrity, to be fair, to reward the best players rather than being influenced by biased or incompetent officiating. By framing the legal case in these terms, Mike Eala is positioning himself and Alex on the side of everyone who cares about tennis being conducted fairly. As this story continues to develop, and trust me, it's far from over, we're going to be watching several key indicators. First, will the WTA issue any kind of statement? So far, there's been silence from the tour itself, which is telling. They're probably being very careful about what they say given the legal implications. Second, will the Abu Dhabi Open tournament organizers respond? They're in an incredibly difficult position. Third, will we see any changes in how Alex is treated by officials in Dubai and future tournaments? Fourth, will other players start sharing their own stories? And fifth, will this legal case actually make it to court, or will there be some kind of settlement or mediation? The sports world loves a good underdog story, and in many ways, that's what this is. It's a young player and her family taking on the tennis establishment, demanding fairness, refusing to be silenced or intimidated. Those stories resonate with people regardless of whether they're tennis fans, because they tap into universal feelings about justice, about standing up for yourself, about not allowing powerful institutions to push you around. Alex Eala is becoming more than a tennis player in this moment. She's becoming a symbol of resistance against unfairness, and that's a powerful thing. This story is developing literally by the hour. We're monitoring social media. We're watching for official statements from the WTA and tournament organizers. We're tracking how the tennis media covers this, and we're paying attention to what happens in Dubai when Alex steps back on the court. This is the kind of story that could change professional tennis. That could change how officiating is conducted. That could empower players to demand better treatment. Or it could quietly fade away if the ELA family is somehow convinced to drop the legal case, or if it gets tied up in legal proceedings for years. But right now in this moment, it feels like something significant is happening. It feels like a line has been crossed and there's no going back. Mike Eala has thrown down the gauntlet. He's called the officiating disgraceful. He's demanded integrity. He's filed a legal case that puts the entire tennis establishment on notice. Now the question is, who will stand with them? Will other players find the courage to speak up? Will fans continue to amplify this story and demand accountability? Will the media keep pressure on tournament organizers and the WTA? Or will the powerful forces that govern professional tennis close ranks protect their own and try to make this story disappear? We're about to find out. And honestly, the stakes couldn't be higher for Alex Eala, for her family, and for the future of fairness in professional tennis. So here's what we need from you, the Champions tennis community, because this is where you come in and your voice actually matters. Do you agree with Mike Eala's decision to file this legal case? Is it finally time that players and their families held officials accountable for terrible calls that impact careers? Or do you think this legal case is a distraction that might hurt Alex's career and her reputation in the long run? This is a legitimate debate with good arguments on both sides, and we want to hear what you think. Go down to the comments right now. Type Team Ella if you support the legal case and think this fight is necessary and justified. Type Play On if you think they should drop the legal action and just focus on the next tournament. We want to see thousands of comments down there showing the tennis world the power and passion of this community. Let the tournament organizers, let the WTA, let the officials who make these decisions see that fans are watching. Fans care about fairness and fans won't accept corruption or bias in the sport we all love. And listen, if you want to stay updated on this legal case, and trust me, you absolutely do, because this story is going to have major developments in the coming days and weeks, you need to make sure you're subscribed to Champions Tennis. We will be tracking every court filing, every official statement, every rumor, every reaction from players and coaches and officials. We'll be breaking down the legal arguments. We'll be analyzing how this impacts Alex's ranking and her tournament schedule. We'll be following this story wherever it goes, and we'll give you analysis you won't find anywhere else. Smash that like button right now if you want justice for Alex. Hit subscribe if you want to be part of this community. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the update when the WTA finally breaks their silence and responds to these explosive allegations. This is Champions Tennis, where we don't just watch tennis matches, we fight for the integrity of the sport we love. We stand with players who are treated unfairly. We demand accountability from officials and organizers. We believe that talent and hard work should determine outcomes, not bias, not incompetence, not corruption. Until next time, keep your eye on the ball, keep fighting for fairness, and maybe keep your lawyer on speed dial, because in professional tennis in 2026, you might just need one. This is a story for the ages and we're just getting started. Team Ella or Play On? Let us know in the comments. We'll see you in the next video with more updates on this absolutely incredible, explosive, potentially sport-changing story.